Lester, Heritage Day means celebrating my South Africanness, whatever that means. Completely. It's something that is very personal to you, but of course it can be something that's very broad. It's Heritage Day this Sunday, but do we have such a public holiday? And in terms of what does it mean and it reflects in our South Africanness? What is the core? What is the purpose of a Heritage Day celebration? Professor Ciraj Rassool is a professor of historical studies at the University of the Western Cape. Ciraj, really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy your Heritage Day in whatever way you choose to enjoy it. But many people having some sort of existential identity crisis. There's a call from the office to come in traditional or cultural dress, but I don't necessarily fit or box myself into one particular cultural or linguistic group in South Africa. What do they then do? Ciraj, good morning.
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I think we have this terrible problem in South Africa that many people, including many of our leaders, many of our politicians, many people in authority, think that heritage is a synonym for culture, and immediately think about culture in the old South African way as a continuity from colonialism and apartheid through its concepts of race and ethnicity that have been generated. Whereas instead, heritage is something very different to that. And it might be because we're a multilingual society and we have different terms in all of our languages. Amasiko, Ditso, Amagugu. We have different terms that we use. Even within the World Heritage System, the English term heritage and the French term patrimoine, the Portuguese and the Spanish term patrimonio signal different things. Our concept of heritage signals some idea of an inheritance, whereas patrimonio signals property. And I would like us rather to think of heritage as a practice, as a knowledge system, and as a system of governmentality. In other words, it refers to the sites, the artifacts, the collections, the practices, and the intangible skills that are deemed to be significant and that are subject to systems of government and that are deemed in some way to be under threat or disappearing and are in need of preservation for future generations and need to be governed in a way that mediates the relationship between stewardship and public access in order to prevent their destruction. And that is an official version of heritage as governmentality. But the good thing is that our people also take heritage into their own hands, and heritage is highly contested. And so the state's meaning of the Newlands Spring in Cape Town is something to do with the history of beer production, something to do with a settler history. Whereas the people who were forcibly removed from Newlands regard that spring as important in the history of enslavement at the Cape, in the indigenous histories of the Cape, and regard it as really belonging to the resources of those who were forcibly removed. And we have another very interesting and important case, currently highly contested, where you might have noticed a few weeks ago, the South African Heritage Resources Agency issued a permit to allow for 2 fossils, hominin fossils, to be flown into space on a commercial space flight under a permit, which has been taken issue with all the professionals in South Africa and overseas.
many officers will receive messages from or emails in this week from the HR and the marketing department saying, come dressed up culturally today. Is that because we haven't been able to have had the language of what defines our heritage? And it is easy to mistake heritage for culture. It's because we've not had a conversation of what are the issues, what are the circumstances, what are the heritages that we share, that we're trying to find a shorthand. And this is often a conversation that we have in South Africa. We don't know how to have a conversation about what makes us us. So what we're going to do, we're going to shorthand it, and either you're going to come in an amaXhosa dress, or you're going to wear a two-tone shirt, or if you're someone who identify as so-called Cape colored, then you're going to be a little bit confused and maybe just wear a t-shirt that says Aware Kaapstad. It's fascinating how we haven't been able, almost 30 years, been able to articulate what heritage in South Africa actually means.
You see, the trouble with those struggles and those contests is when certain practices, certain forms of dress, certain kinds of food are tied to certain bodies and are framed in racial and ethnic ways. And obviously, we have all inherited some form of practice or other in different parts of our lives. And some of those practices we very gladly accept and continue. And some of them we turn down and we say, well, quite frankly, we don't believe that women should be controlled by men any longer. That's not heritage. We do not believe that children should be beaten by their parents. That's not something that we've inherited from the past. That's something that we've decided to change. We change the fact that today we do not regard men and women as unequal any longer. So these are things that we change. And the great thing is that we are a creolized society. We are a melange of cultures. And of course, the trouble is that we all have also been colonized.